guess. He likes the Himalayan salt lamps. They detoxify, they purify, they do all kinds of things. So she bought these Himalayan salt foot blocks that you're supposed to put in the oven and warm up and then set there with your feet on them. And that helps with arthritis, detoxification, and everything else. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them inside of a box, 2 separate boxes with lights in them. These sockets I scavenged from some old chandeliers I disassembled. So I have some nice maple hardwood that's already ready to go. And what I'm going to do is just make a box, make a ledge so the salt block will set on them, and then put a bottom in it, line it with some sort of metal or shiny material, and put these lights in them. So she can plug them in. They can do what the Himalayan salt lamps do, and then when she wants to, she can sit there and put her feet on them. So stay tuned. Okay, so the first step is we're going to measure this block, and I don't want it to fit tight in there. I want it to have a little bit of room just in case it swells, or we buy different blocks or something, they may fit. So right now it's just under 8 inches. It's 7 and 15/16, but I think I'm going to go out to 8 and 1/8 for the inside width. And the same way with the length. The same way with the width. It's right at 4 inches now, so we're going to go 4 and 1/8. This maple I've picked up, I've scavenged. It's exactly 6 inches by 3/4 to cut my length and my width. Now when you do that, because you're going for an inside dimension, you have to make sure you take into account the thickness of the board. And I don't want a standard butt joint. I'm going to try to rabbet it in a little bit just to hide some of the ingrains. So there's going to be a little bit of figuring on that. So in order to do that, you need to figure out where you want your rabbet joints. Do you want them on the ends or the lengthways? In this application, I want to put the rabbet joints on the length of it. So I need to add the length of the wood for both ends. So I need to double that. So if this wood is 3/4 of an inch, which it is, and I want it to set in to the length, I need to add 1.5 inches to the 8 and 1/8. So all you got to do to that is just the simple way to do it. If you just mark your 8 and 1/8, then come out here and mark your 1.5 inches. And this is your mark right here. So if we cut on this mark, we got to make 4 of these. So you can use the laser guide. I like to set the blade down and measure it. So we're at 9 and 1/8, 9 and 5/8. Now I know that from here to here, where I'm going to cut, on the inside it's going to be 9 and 5/8, which is what I want. So I'm going to do our width. Now, I should put on, I've got a different blade, a little finer tooth blade, but this is brand new, so it's going to be okay. But if you notice, I didn't cut all the way through on the first cut. I just made a score line, and that will stop a lot of the splintering. And then I go through and finish my cut, and see the splintering is very minimal. Now, if you want to make it repeatable, you can either set up a stop or flush it here. Your saw should just barely scrape that board. Now I have two boards that are identically the same length. Not too worried about this because I'm going to rabbet most of this out. Okay, so I've got my sides. Now I want to figure for my ends. Now I know the inside dimension is going to be 4 1/8, and I simply can add 1.5 inches to that measurement, because when I rabbet this, I may end up making these a little bit shallower anyways, but when I rabbet this, I'm going to come in like this. So I'm going to leave a little bit of wood here. I'm going to cut all this off. So I want to figure out how much distance I want here, and that I think 1/8 inch is enough. And then the wood will set in here, and it's got to set down 3/4 inch deep here, so it's flush here. So I need to figure out the length. I need to figure out the distance from here to here, and not the whole 3/4 inch. So, you know, 3/4 inch minus 1/8 inch. And you can do it this way. 3/4 inch minus 1/8 inch will be 5/8 inch. Okay, so if I want to leave 1/8 inch here, that makes this 5/8 deep. So 5/8 times 2. For me, I wasn't really good at math, so I just come to my ruler and I go to my 5/8 mark, and then I just count 5 more eighths, and that's 1 1/4 inch. Now you could do it in a subtraction type setup and say, okay, I'm going to leave 2 1/8 inch leftovers. So if I take that 1/8 inch and multiply it by 2, that's 1/4 inch. If you take the 1/4 inch and subtract it from your 1.5 inches, now you have 1 1/4 inch. So we need to add 1 1/4 inch to the 4 1/8. So now that is going to be 5 3/8. Because 1/4 is 2/8, so you add another 1/8 to it, that's 1/8. So we want these end boards at 5 3/8. So I'm going to go to the saw, we'll cut those out real quick. Okay, I got my end boards cut. Now I want to set up to do my rabbet joint. Now you could set your tape measure and measure the thickness from the edge of the blade to the fence there, but if I just take that board and set it in there, so it fits nice and tight. There, my height is, or my depth is set. So now I want to figure out the 1/8 inch. You know, you just come onto your tape measure and you just mark out 1/8 inch deep. See, my first mistake. I didn't figure the blade thickness. So You know, I could say I did it intentionally to show you, but you gotta watch your blade thickness. That is very comes into play. Now, I left enough room on there that I should still be able to use these, and that was part of the reason why I left a little bit of room. I mean, I'm just using a standard skill saw, table saw. I'm not using anything high dollar here, so I have to allow myself variances. Now, if I'm trying to build something really specific, then I cut on the heavy side of the line, and then I take it to the sander. But I don't think in this application we really need to do that too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut another board just like this one, and then I'm going to move that blade in. Now I'll mark these two so I know if these two match. There, now I've subtracted for the blade thickness. And to check that, I just got to line them up, and there we go. Now, you can always cut more off, and you can always sand down. So if this ain't quite right, if it's a little bit deep, you can still sand it down and make it work, so it doesn't look bad on the finished product. Okay, well, now I could just move the fence in a little bit at a time and just keep making cuts. The other way is to move the fence in close and then cut this way. Now in this cut we want to raise the blade to the thickness of the board. And you should end up with that. And then the only end grain you're going to see is right there. So we can work off a little bit of this to get that set down in there, and then sand this nice and smooth. And then we'll make it shallower, and we'll cut this off. Need to replace that blade, but a little bit of trim work and we'll be right where we want to be. And the advantage of this is it doesn't show the end grain, so the only thing you really see is this piece of end grain right here. It's a little bit of sanding work and that'll come out nice and flush. Okay, here's one box, and you know it is kind of deep, so I will end up ripping it in half. If I do this right, I may be able to get both boxes out of one. But here's my salt block, and it'll set in there just like that. It'll be up above the edge a little bit. I don't want it flush, I want it up a little bit. So I'm going to just cut this dead in half, and then we'll do some sanding, and then some assembly, and then we got to put a ledge inside there too. So I'll probably do that before I do too much more of anything else. Just put a support ledge in there. I don't want to use metal because this is salt, so we'll end up using maple or the wood or pine or something to build a ledge in there for this to set on. Okay, what I decided to do was make this box. Instead of making two 6-inch boxes, I'm going to make one 6-inch box, and I'm going to rip it in half. So I'll end up with two 3-inch boxes. Now I've got this glued together, but what I want to do is I want to put a screw in each of the corners. So I measured in 1.5 inches from both ends, and I made my mark. Now what that'll do is that'll put that screw right dead center of the 3-inch box. And then I got little buttons to put in those holes once I drill them out. So I got a drill bit a little bit smaller than the screw. So what I did is I got these plugs, and they fit a 3/8 hole. So I'm just going to put a 3/8 drill bit in my drill and then sink these in. So this tore out on me a little bit. Hopefully the plugs will hide most of it. I think they will. You don't have to do the plugs, but they just kind of finish it off a little bit, make it look nicer. Okay, so now that I got it screwed together, I'm going to go ahead and rip it down. I want it to be equal, so I did 3 inches to the middle of the blade. Okay, so now we got 2 boxes that are identical because, well, they're the same box. So the next step is going to be to put a bottom in of the box. Now I just had a piece of scrap laying around, and I simply just lay the box on there and I traced it out, and then I'll cut to the outside of the line, and that'll give me a bottom for the box. I got to make 2 of them. So I'm going to mark this one B, and the inside of this box will be B, and this will be A, and the inside of this box will be A. Okay, so here it is, and you notice the stuff's finished on one side, raw on the other. I don't really care about the bottom, how this looks on this side, because I'm going to put a piece of shiny metal on this to reflect the light and the heat. So, I mean, to put it in, I am merely just going to put it in and just glue it in. That's all I'm going to do, is just glue it in. So I want it looking like that. Even though this outside here isn't finished, I'll hit it with a little bit of clear polyurethane and it'll be fine. So we'll just let these set overnight. And we'll come back and we'll sand them down, put our ledges in, and then we'll wire them. I got to think about whether I want 1 light or 2 lights. Maybe we'll put 2 lights in, and we can do a low and a high. Put a little switch there for low and high. Well, that'll be it for now. Okay, in this segment, I've done a little pre-work here. So I got the bottom glued in. Now, I haven't done any finish sanding yet, so we're not to that point. I just took a piece of scrap tin I had and lined the bottom just to give it a heat shield and a reflective surface. Now I took my sockets and I bent the bracket in a 90, and I'm going to just screw it right there. And I think I'm going to put 2 bulbs in there. The purpose of this is not necessarily for lighting a room and a centerpiece or decor, plus detoxing and air purifying and all that. It's also, this is going to be primarily plugged in, used, and probably then unplugged. So I think I'm going to put 2 lights in there, and that'll get these blocks nice and warm. So I took some scrap pallet wood I had, and I'm going to just glue that in here, because I want this block to set, I don't want it to set flush, I want it to set above. So I'm going to just glue these in. I'll measure it out, and I'm just going to glue those in and clamp them in and just glue them overnight. And then the blocks will set right on there. But I think I need to get these screwed in first. So I'm just going to drill a hole in here and then use a little short screw. So we need to figure out how far down we want it, and these blocks are just shy of 1 inch. So I think a 1/2 inch down, and that'll give a 1/2 inch over the top. These, they don't weigh quite a pound, but they're close. As for this piece of steel in the bottom, I don't think it's really necessary to glue it down. Matter of fact, if it's a little bit loose, it'll probably work better because there'll be an air gap underneath it. Now on the other one, I didn't have a single piece to make it big enough, so I've got 2 pieces in there. Now the things about a lot of my projects is I like to use scrap I have laying around. I like to use pieces that I salvaged from other projects or wherever as much as possible, so they don't cost me a lot, and I can make nice little projects, nice little pieces, and not spend a lot of money on it. That's how I like to do a lot of my projects. So we're just gonna drill some holes in these brackets right here, and I just use my drill press for that, and then we'll screw those in. Okay, I'm just going to make a mark a 1/2 inch down with this ledge. I want this ledge to set. Now there's my sockets. They're installed. I just bent the elbow, drilled it. And we'll use a clamp like this to clamp it on. Okay, well here's what the box is going to look like. And to wire it, this is where I've saved old cords. So I'm going to run one cord into the end of it, and then I'm going to run a cord out the side of it to join the two boxes together. And I'm going to leave it long so they can be expanded out or together wherever they want to be displayed, or somebody wants to put their feet. So I just ran my cord through my drill bit guide. It's 11:30 seconds. So that's what I just drill, 11:30 seconds hole here. The other one's a 9:30 seconds. I'll drill that here in the side to join the two together. What I decided to do was just solder them and then put some tape on them. Now, soldering isn't really that difficult if you know a few tricks. One of them is to use a good flux, a good solid flux, and then use a rosin core solder. And what you want to do is preheat these, and you don't want to put the solder onto the soldering gun so much, because you want to heat the wire and allow the solder to flow into the wire. Okay, so now those two are nice and connected together. So I'll go down here and I'll get these two. And all I'm doing is just heating the wire and getting that flux core, getting that flux on the wire heated up. And then just working the solder
into the strands of the wire. That's what a lot of people call silvering the wire. Is you're getting the solder into the wire, into the strands of the wire. So now that I have these soldered together, I will take and join them. So here's a close-up. I put the washer with the screw through that to hold the wire, keep the wire from getting pulled out. I did the same thing for this wire going over to the other box. So now I have the blacks soldered together and the white soldered together. So now all I need to do is solder black to black and white to white. And see how the solder is nice and intertwined through all the little wires. That's a good solid joint, and it's a high temperature joint, so it won't come loose. And of course, always white to white, black to black. And you're dealing with 120. Now with winter coming on, hopefully this will be a nice treat. She can plug this in. And put her feet on it. And it'll keep her feet warm. And also the added benefit of the Himalayan salt, which I will let you research that and come to your own conclusions. I will say that there's 3 dogs in our house, and I have 4 of these lamps going, and a lot of people come over and they comment that they don't smell the dogs. So, I hope that's an effect of the salt lamp. The salt lamps also do a real nice job of a nice orange glow at night. And again, they're only little nightlight bulbs, so there's not a lot of electricity to be drawn. I asked about using LEDs, and I was told it wasn't effective because the heat that is generated by this bulb is required to make the lamp work. Well, here they are. Set your feet right on them. Imagine you could probably set them up on a shelf too. Make a little display if you wanted to. Set it like that. And so there you go. Himalayan salt lamp feet detoxifiers. This could be done really in one day or an afternoon. If you glue stuff together and use nails, you don't have to worry, or screw stuff together and use nails, you don't really have to worry about the glue drying. I scavenged all my parts and pieces. The wife did buy these. I don't know where or whatever, but I'm sure you can find them online. I will, this spring, I'll take some polyurethane clear coat and I will seal the raw wood. I don't want to do that in the house. So, any comments, questions, ideas, concerns, thoughts? Leave them. Let's discuss it. Please comment. Subscribe to my channel. I like doing these little quick and easy projects just to get imagination going. This could be an easy project for a couple or a parent and a child. Afternoon. Really not too complicated. You can make it a lot rougher with just square joints. Use pine instead of the maple. But this is just stuff I had laying around. The cords, the sockets, it's all stuff I've scavenged over the years. So, again, any questions, concerns, comments, thoughts, please subscribe. Leave them. Let's discuss them and let's talk about it. Thank you.